My name is Roma Havers, and I'm going to read from my project, OUTscription. I began writing OUTscription in June 2019 during my residency at MMU Special Collections Library with Let the Artists In. I spent several days in the archives, distracted from my planned research for the dance poetry show I was writing, Lob, on tennis and outness. But I became transfixed by one children's book, pulled off the shelf because of the tennis player on its spine. It was Winifred Norling's Jennifer Wins Through, a girls' school mystery about a girl who gets in trouble for telling the truth and is sent to school for naughty girls. There was an inscription on the front of this book, as you will see, the name Leopold, and an unfinished address. An address that I had walked past many times, a road many of my childhood friends had lived on. The last time I returned to where I grew up was the year I came out and the year the only gay pub in Reading became a pizzeria. It's not a place I like to think about. This felt like an unignorable coincidence. The project then became about three things: find Leopold, find Winifred's history, which I selfishly hope to be as queer as her pearl necklace seemed to be, and make sure Reading doesn't get in the way. Somehow, in the week, I hand-carried all my belongings between three addresses, ate mainly pickled food, and was dramaturgying a script merging verbatim accounts of Peterloo and interviews with modern protesters. Everything got in the way. No one replied to my emails. Dead ends appeared everywhere. No amount of research could calibrate the details on a Goodreads page. And Reading's personal history got in the way, even though I lifted directly from Oscar Wilde's De Profundis to keep a wall between me and it. And these little poems emerged, turning themselves into articles, upside downs. They are brutally unacademic in their refusal to attribute, in their loose sources, in their cyclical lack of conclusion, and of course, the terrible, mischievous eye who follows you into the archives like a dog while you are pissing, although you beg it not to. Outscription to me is the opposite of inscription, the opposite of laying claim, of leaving your mark. Different ways of writing into the hokey cokey pokey of history, in out, shake it all about. Outscription. To write outwardly, in a way that derails biography, derails name, to inscribe like a recapitulation, like a dissociation, like a damp blanket thrown over a hot stove. Like death of the author only matters if you have the right to stay alive. To leave yourself open to reimaginings. Ascription, conscription, prescription, transcription, subscription, proscription, superscription, circumscription, inscription, description, outscription. Ascription. For Winifred and Theobald Leopold. No one wants to tell me who you are. Even the ellipsis you left behind, concaved, uncompromising in your invisibility, and that address, preserved as close to girlhood as I would dare speak of. Someone I know surely must know you too. To translate queer out of 6 sinners of St. Swithin's, Pearl Necklace, Perm, Baroness, Berlin, Brighton, Jennifer Wins Through, the Abbey Girls Win Through. Ellipsis as the opposite of denouement. Subject, togethered by page, too close together. The homograph, or rather heteronyms of project and project. Super. Nothing else would have me email Vickers and old girls and pity me. It isn't only circumstance, it's unrelishing the place I learnt to read. Kidmore, Reading. And we win through without no one wants to tell me who that address preserved. Out of 6 sinners. Of Saint you are. Even the ellipsis is close to girlhood. Swithin's, Pearl Necklace, you. As I would dare speak of Perm, the The Baroness, Berlin left behind, concaved. Someone I know surely must. Brighton, Jennifer Wynn's uncompromising. Know you two through. The Abbey Girls, In Your Invisibility, and Translate Queer Win through Ellipsis. As the opposite of heteronyms, it isn't only denouement. Of project and project circumstance, it's subject, super, nothing. Unrelishing the place I togethered by page, else would have me learnt to read. Kid, more too close together, the email, Vickers and old reading. Can we win? Homograph, or rather girls, and pity me through, without the up St. Peter's Avenue, right onto Upper Woodcote, fork left onto Richmond Road, past the slow coach house, past Albert Road Park where I learnt how to ride my bike, left onto Kidmore Road. If you reach the Caversham Rose where once we saw a dog on the roof, you have gone too far. Conscription. There you are. Theobald Leopold. Prescription. For Theobald Leopold. I have known unkind men, and you boys who cradle notebooks like a perfect rippling caterpillar, you found interloping around your shoelace and scrambled all the way up the garden path to show me you are not one of them. I have seen your softest parts. The long rest of head against my shoulder after your words on the page are enough. I'm sorry it's awkward when I see you, but it's always good to see you. And what an honour it is. They said, I don't know him, but he has eyes like I have eyes. You scurry-headed youths, you mussed-up mayhems, you swinging back and forth on the recliner handle. The artichoke heart is the best part, but the art is in peeling off the leaves. I have known unkind men. I have seen your softest. They said I don't know him. You boys who cradle parts, the long rest. But he has eyes like I have notebooks. Of head against my eyes you scurry like a perfect rippling shoulder. After-headed youths, you caterpillar. Your words on the page are mussed-up mayhems. You found interloping enough. You swinging back and forth around your shoelace. I'm sorry it's awkward on the recliner handle. And scrambled all the way when I see you. The artichoke heart is up the garden path to show, but it's always good to see the best part, me, you. But the art is in peeling off. You are not one of them. And what an honour it is. Petals. Transcription for, or rather from, Winifred Norling's Goodreads. Winifred Norling was a pseudonym for Winifred Mary Jacobson, a prolific English children's author known primarily for her girls' school stories. Born in 1905 in Southampton, Winifred was educated at Winchester County High School, leaving in 1923 to assist her parents, Matthias Jacobson and Alice Jeans, in running their temperance hotel near the docks. Befriended by a young woman, by the Baroness Maria Anna Sophia Margrethe von Sedgwick, Jacobson lived with von Sedgwick in Germany before the two women returned to England in 1930, settling in Kemp Town, Brighton. She died in 1979, having written a great many children's books, which were extremely popular in their time. Would you mind me hawking you round to all and sundry, you model of wickedness? Difficult is anything that was not just the usual, easily understood nature. A cat called Pussolini, Miss Kingsnorth, king of the castle, and a set of moonlight tennis. Couldn't we be comely here? You Jessamy brides, portmanteaus, translations. I'm sorry I tried to make a watermelon woman of you. Winifred Norlings was befriended as a young me. Hawking you round, a pseudonym for Winifred woman, by the Baroness to all, and sundry you model. Mary Jacobson, a prolific Marie Anna Sophia of wickedness. English children's author, Margrethe von Sedgwick. Difficult is anything that known primarily for her Jakobsen, lived with was not just the usually known girls' school stories. Born in von Sedgwick in Germany, understood nature. 1905 in Southampton. Before the two women, a cat called Pussolini. Winifred was educated at, returned to England in 1930. Miss Kingsnorth, King of Winchester County High, settling in Kemp Town, the castle and a set of school, leaving in 1923 to Brighton. She died in 1979. Moonlight, tennis. Couldn't assist her parents. Matthias, having written a great many, We Be Comely Here, You Jakobson and Alice Jeans, children's books, which Jessamy Brides, in running their temperance, were extremely popular in portmanteaus, translations, hotels near docks. Their time. Would you mind? I'm sorry. I tried to make a watermelon woman out of you. Subscription. That tennis player on the spine. The way she held her racket reminded me of someone. Out, out, out. In tennis, outness is failure. Out, out, out. In tennis, outness is an act of giving up. Out, out, out. It disrupts partnerships by imbalance, by power. Out, out, out. It shows the difference between poor form and good form. Out, out, out. It can be more contested easily now. Can be identified by those Hawkeye machines. It is definitive. Out, out, out. In tennis, outness is lonely. Out, out, out. It is umpired, decided by another. A false demarcation of play. Out, out, out. Foul. The person who has to stand in the corner so the game can continue. You're playing centre, but the other centre can only use one hand. In just means continuing in volley with another when the ball is coming back over the net. That tennis player. Between poor form and on the spine. The way she, good form, out, 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 foul. The held her racket reminded me it can be contested more. Person who has to stand in of someone. Out, out, easily now. Can be. The corner so the game can out. In tennis, outness is identified by those Hawkeye continue. You're not playing failure. Out, out, out. In machines, it is definitive. Centre, but the other centre, tennis, outness is an act of out, out, out. In tennis, can only use one hand. In giving, of giving up, out. Outness is lonely. Out, out just means continuing. In out, out, it disrupts. Out is an umpired decided volley with another when partnership by imbalance by another are false. The ball is coming back over by power. Out, out, out. It demarcation of play. The net shows the difference. Proscription. Before the hankering, the hawking, the hawkeye, the hanky code, the polarized, the polari, the polar axis, polar bears, the other bears, the boars, the borders, the borers, the aurora borealis, the daughters of Bilitis, before you mistreat us, before your mother was a fetus, before the dreamless, deedless, didyless, the daddyless. I think of you as knowing before I think of you, knowing as I do think of you. I do prescribe you from use of us in all the ways that history dispossesses us before the hankering, the aurora borealis. Think of you as knowing the hawking, the hawkeye, the daughters of Bilitis before I think of you, the hanky code, before you mistreat us, knowing as I do the polarized, the polari before your mother was think of you. I do prescribe the polar actis, polar bears, the fetus, before you from use of us in all the other bears, the boars, the dreamless, deedless, the ways that history, the borders, the borers, didyless, the daddyless, I dispossesses us. Superscription, De Profundis, HMP Reading. The ugliest form of quotation. To write to me is better than to publish my letters without my permission or to dedicate poems to me unasked. The only true vice is shallowness, and if life is a problem to me, I am no less a problem to it. If you want an inscription to read at day or at night, for pleasure or for pain, write upon the wall of your house for the sun to gild and the moon to silver. You wore me out. I was made for other things, and an epigram to truth itself. The ugliest form of quotation is in delineation and not even unwind the context. To write to me, life is a problem to write upon the wall of, is better than to publish me. I am no less your house for the sun to. My letters without a problem to life. If you gild and the moon my permission, or want an inscription to read to silver, you wore me out. To dedicate poems to me at day or at night time, I was made for other things, unasked. The only true vice for pleasure or in an epigraph is shallowness. And if for pain, to truth itself. Circumscription. Reading Jail. An afternoon at Hobbycraft, parked at Holybrook, for dust sheets thick enough to conceal, but thin enough for fists to punch through, for paint to congeal. Drive through first. Once in the ruins of the Abbey, I watched my babysitter dying, Juliet, and Paris's heaving chest. That alarm rang. I swore I saw a man like a spider, shocked into stillness, clenched. A time we passed the oracle and saw a man against the tiles. Later on the news, how he was talked down. You are not those men. Reading Jail to punch through. That alarm rang. An afternoon for paint to congeal. I swore I saw at Hobbycraft drive-through first a man, like a spider, shocked, parked. At Holybrook once, in the ruins, into stillness, the dust sheets thick of the Abbey. I watched, clenched, a time we passed enough to conceal, my babysitter dying, Juliet, the oracle, and saw but thin enough for fists. In Paris's heaving chest, a man against the tiles. Later on the news, how he was talked down. You are not those men. Inscription. Under the Maywand lion, that memorial in unmoving cast iron, throat ossified in unending roar, you told me how the sculptor threw himself on the tracks because he did the legs wrong. Her natural posture, we exclaimed, still in theatre garb. I played the young prince, whose death was too early to justify my presence, so I've joined you in the chorus, where we made up the starboard and hull of Antigonus's ship. I'd never told you how often I got off the bus early to walk home with Leontes, pretending I admired the unglazing of her eyes when Hermione stepped out of the sculpture of herself. That too warm art. I simply agreed that the sculpture's shame was justified. That if I had to witness those forking flanks and the youths daring each other to piss up the plinth, then I too might reconsider my exit. We were just 16, and only halfway brave, and all our days were the same awkward length. So we'd never admit the best parts of the show were when our masks were on and we could look. What a fool honesty is, and trust. In these bottle green tights, we all have the wrong legs. Under the Maywand lion, tracks. Because he did death, was too early to that memorial, in unmoving the legs wrong. Justify my presence. So I cast iron, throat ossified in her natural posture. Joined you in the chorus, unending roar. You told me, we exclaimed. Still in where we made up the how. The sculpture. Theatre garb. I played the starboard and the hull. Threw himself on the young prince, who's Antigonus's ship. I never told you how often I stepped out of the sculpting to witness those forking. Got off the bus early to walk of herself, that 2 warm flanks, and the youths staring home with Leontes. Art. I simply agreed, each other to piss up. The pretending I admired, that the sculptor's shame, plinth, then I too, the unglazing of her eyes, was justified, that might reconsider. When Hermione, if I had my exit, but we were just 16 and we'd never admit the best honesty is in trust, and only halfway brave. And all parts of the show were when these bottle green tights, our days were the same. Our masks were on and all of awkward lengths, so we could look. What a fool. The wrong legs. Description. Visibly Venus, this violence between us is angling out. Inside is feeling the absence of doubt. Doughboy reclaiming the face of fed up of this mouth, despite my best efforts. Masculine comprehensibility, plummy rude pony boy, salon rules solenoid, heat avoids responsibility again. In the conifer of confidence, the cone is anti-scratch. I thought you were my friend. Slow down, baby. In the old angle of up, I'm just looking out for you. When something's held together properly, you aren't supposed to feel the glue. Visibly Venus, this violence, despite my best efforts, I thought you were my between. Us is angular, masculine, friend. Slow down, baby. Angling out, incomprehensibility, and the old angle of upside is feeling. Plummy rude, pony boy, I'm just looking out. Absence of doubt, salon rules. Solenoid, deep for you. When something's doughboy, reclaiming avoids responsibility again. Held together properly. The face of fed in, the conifer of confidence you aren't supposed to. Up of this mouth, the cone is anti-scratch. Feel the glue. Outscription. I don't know if you are worth remembering. I only know there are people worth remembering who are hard to find. I don't know if you are. I only know there are people who are hard to find. Worth remembering. Worth remembering. Thank you.